Okay, I told you there's a lot of videos coming today. It's just one of those days where I got a lot of things going that are kind of new and kind of interesting and that I want to share. You know, if I'm just shoveling out a stall or something like that, that's not too cool, and I don't really feel like I want to bring you into that because there's no future in that. You know, it's not like in 2 weeks I'll show it to you when it's full of manure. It just wouldn't be that interesting. But I have not been out in my grow area. That's what I call this for people that might be new to the channel. This is 300 by 100, and it started out as a produce field, and then it's kind of morphed into a pig growing area. And I have it divided 200 by 100 here, and then 100 by 100 there. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a section of fence right here. So it'll be 100 by 100, 100 by 100, and 100 by 100, all connected by gates. And where we did run pigs on this, the other day I was out here and I showed you, I went through this with the rotavator, and it looks kind of like coffee grounds now. It's really, really fine stuff. The fertility should be really good. It was covered with pig manure, and that's all down now. There is no smell out here. There's no adverse smell. I can smell, you know, the alfalfa out in that field, and it's a sweet smell, but there's no manure smell out here, and there very rarely is, because with a small number of pigs, 25-ish, and it's spread out, you know, the secret to pollution is dilution. It's diluted and you just don't smell it. And it has to do with what we feed them to. We don't give them hog chow. Hog chow is really stinky stuff. And that's a subject for another video. But I'm going to put in this section of fence right here, straight across here. So then we'll have 3 sections, and we can start using this area the way it's designed to be used. Before I start building that, and I'm going to actually do a lot of filming on that, and we're going to use that in the Homesteaders Guild videos, you know, how to build a corner post or an H post. I just wanted to first, in the essence of time, here it is, it's probably the 23rd, 24th of August, so I'm running out of growing season. I want to get this planted. Now, I didn't do it this summer because it was so dry. And I do have irrigation on this field, but I was busy with other stuff, and they were priorities, and so I didn't irrigate the field, and therefore I didn't plant the field, which is okay. We let the pigs run on it, and so they're putting down additional fertilizer. And there's something else too to doing that. When you have pigs on a field like this, of course this soil here is rich with weed seed. And if I were to keep them off of here, see, they're over there now. They're in that 100 by 100 pen there. If I were to keep them off of this, this would slowly but surely fill up with weeds, because the weed bank is massive in soils that it's filled. But after a while, you know, every time a seed will pop up, if they see it, they go over and they eat it. So there is a finite number of seeds in this soil, believe it or not. There's not an infinite number. And they do knock it down. So by leaving them out here this summer, I've actually decreased the weed seed load in here. Hard for me to know how much, but this has been open now for 2-3 days now, and I don't see any growth at all. And there is a little bit of moisture out here, so it could happen. It could, but we see nothing, absolutely nothing. Okay, so where I'm going to divide this in half, I'm going to plant 2 different products here. And we collect seeds. When we go someplace and we see that they've got a different type of seed, you know, we'll nail it. And it's usually pretty cheap stuff when you're planting fields like this. So I think here I'm going to plant this. This is a medium red clover, and we planted quite a bit of this summer up by the garden. We planted it in between the rows, and that's an effort to utilize a lot of the organic material that's in between the rows, and it also suppresses any weed growth, and it'll only come up about 6 inches, and then I can just go down the row with a mower and I discharge it onto the side that I want, and it works out really nice. And it is a what they call a nitrogen fixer, right? So it holds nitrogen in the soil, right? Nitrogen's pretty important, and we've got a lot of nitrogen out here because we've got a lot of manure out here and a lot of urine out here from the pigs. So we want to hold it if we can. This stuff is going to sprout fast. It's going to grow fast, and then probably 6 weeks from now, I will let the pigs out of there onto it, and they will chow it down. It doesn't seem, you know, if it's only about 8 inches tall, you might think, boy, that's not very high, you know, it's not much stuff. But if you added up the square footage of this field, and then we took a weight of a square foot of this red clover that's going to come up, it's surprising how much forage there will be, right? And you know what, paid $11.94 for this. My wife got this, I probably wouldn't have, for 6 pounds, relatively cheap. So 12 bucks, and let's say we got about 4 pounds per square foot. If you do the math on that, it'll be fresh forage, and it'll be used as they need it, you know. So there's definitely a plus side to that. You know, well, let's see, it's 100 by 100. I'm not prepared to do this, but anyway, you get the idea. There's going to be a lot out there. On this side, I think I'm going to plant this. This came from Maine, and anything that comes from Maine has got to be good. This is a tillage radish, number 5. Don't know as I've used this before, but usually what a tillage radish is, it's a daikon radish that will go deep. You know, you want them to go deep, so they'll break the soil up, and then the pigs will go after it. So I'm going to plant that over here, figuring that I don't really want to have any pigs left on this field when we go into deep winter. So I'm hoping that when I finally do move them down here, that'll be the final crop on this. And that group of pigs will have all gone through the shop, and we will be starting over again, fresh again, next spring. When I do move them out of there onto here, I'll be real quick about getting in there and planting that. Now, 6 weeks from now, well, let's say a month from now, we're going to be September 24th-ish, if that's what it is. You know, you can still get some germination at that time. You still have some hot days, and we can get the ground covered. And that's what we really want to do going into winter. We want the ground to be covered with something, and not weeds if we can help it. And a good thing to plant at that time of the year would be rye. And I'm going to have to take you around to my other 2 fields where I planted Sudan grass, but it was as dry as the Serengeti out there, and none of it came up. None of it, or very little of it. So I did get a nice weed growth out there, turned it all down. It looks as pretty as this, and then I planted it with rye. Good old American rye. Rye germinates in about 4 days, and it'll germinate in the seawater just about. It's really easy to grow rye. And then it comes up bright green, very thick, holds a lot of water. The snow can come down on it, and it will continue to grow under the snow. It's incredible stuff. So that will be on those fields, that will be my early forage for my cows next spring. Before I can get them out on these fields, because it's too muddy and I don't want to do damage. My forage fields for the cows, I know that they're going to damage the fields, but that's okay because the pounds per square foot that I'm producing out there, it makes it worth it to me to do that. You know, I don't have to burn up my hay. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do out here, and I'll probably... Okay, this is how I do this, all right? I've talked about this before. Pretty low tech. I mean, they sell stuff that's high tech to do this, and you could do that. You could go that route if you want, but this has worked for me. And if it works, I use it. This is just a Earthway even spread, right? So I fill this up with my seed, and then I'm just going to walk a pattern here, and where I've got it right by my side, I can figure out if I'm going to make it or not. And so I'm going to start out real light, and I'm going to definitely use up all 6 pounds of each, and I figure that's okay. That's okay. So it's 100 by 100, so it's 10,000 square feet. I'm not ready to do that right now, but I will be. Next time I come to you, I'll have those numbers. That's the downside of doing a live video. You can get caught looking pretty dumb. And as soon as we get it spread, then I'm gonna go over it with this. I got a really nasty comment about my compost spreader. Somebody said, I'll never get that 2 minutes and 11 seconds back. Like they watched the video and they felt as though they'd been cheated somehow. Anyway, I don't know. It works really well. And then I modified it a little bit with a piece of panel there with some grater blade hanging on it. And when I roll over freshly seeded ground like this, I get a really nice pattern, and it pushes the seeds in. And as you can see, we've got some cloud cover. You know, this morning we were butchering chickens and it was clear as a bell. Now I've got some cloud cover, and the weatherman says it's going to rain about 5 o'clock. So if I can get this seeded and then it rains, we get some good absorption of water on here, I think we can get some pretty nice germination by the end of next week and a good start on things. It might not work, but if it doesn't, we're not out a whole lot, you know. Don't get discouraged if you do a seeding and it doesn't work, because sometimes you do a seeding and you cannot believe how well it works. I think last year was the year that we did daikon radishes on this, but I did it much earlier, and I had 10-pound radishes coming out of here, and it was really nice, really nice. And we didn't get those radishes again this year for some reason. It's too bad. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to drag it down so it's all covered up, and then I'm going to get to working on this section. So, it's Mark for Baker's Green Acres. Remember, anyone can farm.